In this episode, I sit down with Jennifer Jones, the owner of Farmhouse Stone in Texas. Now, Jennifer's just one of the most inspiring entrepreneurs and businesswomen that I've had the privilege of meeting and having the opportunity to work with. We discuss the early days in her journey, starting the business from her garage, all the way to fast forward to today, where they're enjoying explosive growth and the challenges that come with that, and how we're navigating systemizing a business that's scaling rapidly. We talk about what really inspires Jennifer, her process, and how she approaches the materials in stone and tile, what it's like to work with her daughter. So we really get into a lot of things that I think will, be valuable, insightful, and relatable to a lot of people that listen to this. So, guys, I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I did in recording it with Jennifer. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the episode. Before Farmhouse, you were in a totally different industry and career path. Can you share a little bit about your background and then how did you end up in the surface industry?
So prior to stone industry, I worked for FedEx office, formerly Kinko's, and I was a sales rep and then elevated to a regional sales manager. So the interesting thing is though, it's logistics. So I learned a lot about logistics because I was on the corporate side. And then as things changed with FedEx Kinko's and them trying to figure out like how they were going to use that piece adding to the FedEx family. They kept changing, and I had the opportunity to exit and decided to exit at that time and be a stay at home mom. So, um, a big drastic change. To be honest, I never wanted to be a stay at home mom, but it just, had to be. I had a 4, 3, and a 2-year old. So, kept me busy for a few years.
And then what brought you into the surface industry? Like out of,
This
being a stay-at-home mom while the kids were really young, at what point did you enter the surface
so
industry direct or did you go into a different industry before?
No, I did not. So I went, we have our third child is special needs. So he's autistic and was nonverbal, but we went to some great schools and he was finally mainstreamed, not finally, but he was mainstreamed in kindergarten.
Right.
And I found a lot of time on my hands. And a friend of
Mm.
mine was changing her career and had interviewed with 3 different companies, and we were just spitballing and talking about each one, pros and cons, and when she brought up the one that was in the stone and tile industry or the stone industry, I was like, "Oh my god, that sounds so cool." And so that was the one that she was gonna take, and then the next day she called, she's like, "Hey, I decided not to take that one, I'm going in an advertising route." So she's like, "You should go talk to him." And I was like, "You know what? I think that would be great." So I went and interviewed and ended up working 3 days a week, drop my kids off in the morning, leave to pick them up from school, and just got bit by the bug. So it was three
Yeah.
days a week, then 4 days a week, 5 days a week, traveling. Just fell in love with the industry.
Nice. Curious question, because it's an interesting, like, diverging paths. She decided not to take that job and went into advertising. Did she stay in that industry after all these years?
She did, and she had been in that industry for a long time. So she just
Okay.
kind of stayed with what was comfortable for her.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, and then that, so at one point, the company, and there was the same company, and I'm trying to remember, or the journey there, but at some point there was a change in direction happening, which then led to what is now Farmhouse Stone as we know it today. But can you share a little bit about what was happening, as much as you obviously can share or are willing to share about what was happening then and the opportunity that presented itself, which led to you then starting to run Farmhouse from your garage?
So I worked for my former employer for about 6 years, and like I said, loved the industry, but I wasn't feeling fulfilled. It wasn't a big change on their part, so to speak, but they didn't do what I call all the pretty stuff. like the mosaics and the marbles. And while I don't think that that's where I initially started in my direction, I did love stone, and I had designers telling me, like, you have such a good eye. You have such a, like, you really know how to plug and play. Like, they would describe something, and I could picture it in my head exactly what they were talking about. So I did interview with a few companies, and I just I didn't love. I found that I really loved what I was doing. I didn't want to change industries, but I didn't want to work for a competitor. So my husband and I were just talking one night, and he had gone to a factory with me overseas in France, and I just had like a whisper in my ear, tap on my shoulder, is like, it's like, oh my gosh, what do you think if I start my own business? And he's like, that's such a great idea. So it took me a little while before I got the guts, about 8 months, to kind of prepare myself, because you own your own business, it's a big jump, and there's usually a catalyst or a reason. There's a thought that it's a very bold move. So it took about 8 months, and called my husband at noon one day, and I said, "Today's the day." He was like, "What?" I was like, I can't do it anymore. I feel like I know I can't do it anymore." And he's like, "What are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I'm just gonna try. I'm just gonna do it. I'll figure it out." Which, by the way, is his favorite saying that I say. He always starts, almost a tear comes out of his eye when I say, "I'll figure it out."
Yes,
So
yes. Yeah,
it's like, no, no, not again. Um,
not
so
again.
May 1st, 2018 was my first official day as Farmhouse Stone.
Nice. What are some of the things that really stand out about those early days?
Oh my gosh. I think the first week was coverings. So, going into it, I had been to coverings for several years, but going in with a different set of eyes, like, I was looking for myself, and I was looking, and that was the first time that certain things started to stand out, like mosaics and marbles, and I'd always been limestone and building stone and things like that. But it really was almost like this fairy tale, like going into, I don't know, it was just like angels singing, like, I was like, oh my God, I can do anything. I can look at anything. Which I did find out was not the case. There's many companies that had exclusives. So that was a little disheartening at first, but um, it just gave me a different perspective. So that was
Yeah,
that was really when I was like, okay, I'm like, really excited. Um, I really, I just had a lot of questions. Like, for instance, when I went to the bank and I opened my account, like, wow, what are you gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know. I might do $5,000. I might do $50,000. I might do 500,000. I have no idea. I had
right, right.
left without informing people. I just decided today is the day, and I'm going to do it. And just started. I was fortunate. Ardo, which is a company that we represent, um, was always a big fan, and I was a big fan of theirs. So they helped me. They were actually my first job. They gave me a referral, so that was exciting. That was an exciting thing, and it just was a lot of, we'll figure it out. I'd call people and just let them know that I was what I was doing, and that I'd started a company, and um, having good relationships really helped. And there were small orders at first, but they were orders that helped me kind of navigate what the future would be. So stone's super heavy. How are you going to deliver it? I had a landscape architect that had ordered from me, and you know, it was big enough that I couldn't put in the back of my truck, and I sure didn't want to unload it myself, which was honestly, that was kind of my, I don't know, I feel like I'll figure it out. And it was a gated community, and when the truck got there, I didn't give them the code, so that they had to call me, and as he got out of the truck, and I'm like, "Hi, I'm Jennifer. I own Farmhouse Stone, and I need somebody to deliver my stone. Are you interested?" And they're still my delivery company today. So
No,
it's, yeah, because they had a Moffat and they had a truck, and they could deliver the big loads, they could do the small loads. But
literally
yes,
figuring it out on the spot.
yeah, seriously, 7 years. I mean, it's really heavy. It's not like, oh, we'll just, I couldn't continue to ask my clients, like, hey, can you get up there and unload that for me? Or, I feel like that business plan wasn't quite going to work.
Right. I'm just curious. So with Ardo referring your first project to you, the one that didn't come from referral, and you might not be able to remember this, but if you do, did you celebrate that one?
I, for sure.
Or
I
or maybe
always celebrated. I have a,
I know a lot of the business comes from referrals, but one that
yeah.
wasn't necessarily just like, here you go, you know?
Um, I don't remember, Justin. I mean, I try to celebrate even today, like
Yeah.
moments, and just keep myself in check of like, okay, this is worthy of celebrating. And with my
Yeah.
team now, but in the beginning, oh my gosh, I think I was just chugging. So, just going, 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 and
Right.
yeah, just the back of my truck and
Yeah. But they
like,
just
like,
but
hey, would
it's
you
like
like a watch and my overcoat? Like,
it's just tile samples, in your coat. Totally.
exactly.
Uh, just because I know what it's like to jump without knowing where you're gonna land or how you're gonna land, and then you do, and it's just like, hallelujah, and you celebrate, and there's
Yeah.
some relief there. So, yeah, I was just curious
It's
if,
see, so many people had great input and calling people and talking to them, and it really paved the way. Like just, and I'm not a big phone talker, so for me, that wasn't the easiest thing to do. But these are people that I liked and I trusted,
yeah,
and they were willing to give me a chance. There's one in particular that I've been working 4 years on his house, and he still hadn't started, and that's where I office today. And it's like, hey, let me look at some space. I've got some space up here, and in my head, I'm like, I haven't even sold a tile. Like, I have no money to pay
right.
rent, especially in this area. But it's things like that that just, um, they work out.
You can't plan for when you try to plan for everything and have all the ducks in a row, I think that's a success, and it is the leaps of faith, and obviously having a certain amount of planning and taking a massive amount of action. But if you
Yeah,
have faith, the right doors will open.
for
Um,
sure.
if you're able to, tell me a little bit about like what is it about tile and the materials that speak to you so deeply that now I would say you're somewhat obsessed with, that you will spend hours
Fair.
and hours playing on the living room floor. And what is it about that first that really speaks to you? And then I'd love to talk a little bit about your process if you have one that you're actually able to kind of define and unpack.
Well, this stone, which is where we started, the organic beauty of it, and just the timeless, it's been around literally since the beginning of time, but like how it's used and on streets or houses or, um, it just adds that beauty of, combining it with wood or iron or, just all the different mediums and all the colors. It's something that to me is the canvas of a space that everything else is built off. So,
Mm,
it's such a personal choice. I mean, countertops, which we don't do. Countertops are a very emotional feeling because you've got different veining and you've got different colors in it. Well, stone is, it can be that, but it also can be. Um, I always say stone doesn't know whether it's contemporary or old world. It's how you manipulate it,
right.
and you can change it to create what you want it to be, and it is
Mm,
through and through. So, I absolutely love how, I always say that it's not, a mountain or an area has many people quarrying usually from the same space, but how that factory is manipulating it and understanding the stone to bring out the beauty is what I see. It's not just a honed or just a tumbled or uh, sandblast brushed or whatever. There's truly steps that are taking that give it a different appearance. And it can't just be limestone. It has to be limestone from a certain region because the density and the color and then oh my gosh, and then you start getting into tiles and patterns and I cannot go into a restaurant or a hotel or walk down a street in Paris or go into the Vatican. Everybody's looking at the beautiful art on the walls, and I'm staring at the tile that I'm stepping on, and I'm like taking pictures just like every 5 feet because they've got a different pattern. And it's just the churches and it, it's something that I remember seeing something that Ardo had done that was like the 3D hex. And it was this old world. I was like, oh my God, that's so contemporary when I first saw it. 'Cause I'm not a designer. I don't have that background. But then I'm like going into a church in Italy and I was like, oh, guess that's not so contemporary. It's been here 1,000 years. It's just
Right,
so
right.
it's recognizing what's in the world. As I always say that once you get bit by this bug, you never see the world the same way. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's interesting how I've ended up in this industry and studied art and art history and fine art. And so studying all of the places that you're mentioning, usually in terms of what's painted versus,
yes.
what's there, but still, you get into all the different mosaics and archways and all the different things that goes into that. And it's interesting how it's come full circle a little bit now, even
Yeah.
for me on
It,
my side of things. Yeah. So
it,
I'm curious, do you have a defined process that you follow that's the same each time? Or if you get a shipment in and you get all these news, because I was with you when you were waiting for, I can't remember what it was, but a new shipment to come in. And it had been a while you were waiting. And then it came and it was
yeah.
like Christmas in
Yeah.
August.
Yep.
And then you got them and you immediately had them brought to your house. And
Yeah.
then you were up for a while playing with it. Um, is it organic playing is the process? Or do you know, hey, when it comes, I'm going to do exactly these steps?
It's organic playing a little bit. It's like you see things when I pick out material, I have an idea, and um, whether it's a 12 by 12, a 3 by 12, an 8 by 8, which is what this order happened to be, and 3 by 3s and cabochons. When like when I'm at a show, it's on a board. You don't get more than one piece. You get like maybe a couple of pieces on a board, and they're not loose, and you can't like pick them up and like play with them. But in my
Right.
mind, I'm thinking of how to create something with that. Um, so when I got the order, received that particular order, which happens often, that it's like a toy box for me. I mean, it's like you're getting all the blocks and you're putting it, you're seeing how the colors look together. And even it might be the same stone, but in a different texture that
Mhm.
gives it this completely unique look. And um, that day that I actually went and got it all out of the warehouse myself because I was so excited. Like the warehouse crew had gone home. I loaded it in the back and it was a lot of material. I haven't done that in a while.
Oh,
And then
that's
I was sending pictures to my daughters, and one of my daughter at the time, she just moved home from college, and she goes down. She's like, "What are you doing?" And she's standing up there, and she can kind of see like everywhere around the sofa and the chairs are just different patterns set throughout the room. And she came down and started playing with me, and then my oldest started, Caitlin. She comes over and she starts, she came over from her house. It's just kind of funny and fun, to play with it. Like, oh, look at this pattern, and it's something that's so simple, but
right.
it can make such an impact putting the
Mhm.
different colors together. So it's just a lot of fun.
I'm
Um,
curious. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, I was going to say a lot of inspiration has come from designers over the years by
Mm,
that. You're like, I never thought about doing that. That looks really good.
yeah. I'm curious. Very early on, when we kicked off our conversation, you said you could see it in your head. I'm
Hmm.
curious if there's times where you can, you're working with the designer, they've described something, you can see it in your head, but you can't find what you need. to bring that vision to life, and how
It
often that
happens.
yeah,
It
yeah,
happens, but not very often.
not very often.
I might need sometimes though, especially with stone and tile, there's a lot, well, I might be able to make it happen. I just might not be able to make it happen in a budget. There's one problem. It's sometimes like, okay, if we cut that here, it's going to be exorbitantly expensive versus if we have time, there's ways around it. But um, time and money are big factors in trying to make something a reality. But that
Right.
input is, I noticed that was an advantage of working on the floor was I talked to designers, and when you see a picture from Pinterest or Instagram or wherever, 3 or 4 times, you're like, okay, wait a minute. Like here's a trend. Like here's something that is people want, but they can't find it.
Mhm.
So that's, but when I in my head, I can, like it's a texture or an idea. And we do have a great team too that can help do a mock up because just because somebody's like, yeah, that's what I want, when they see it together, it's like, "Ah, that's not quite it, or the scale isn't quite right." So, um, there's many steps to that. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun in trying to find it. And then it usually influences a decision I make later down the line.
Mm, mhm. Um, Bridging off of, like, being able to see it in your mind and, being able to ultimately execute it with enough time and money. When it comes to the showroom, I'm sure you had a very intentional vision in mind. And getting to be there, it's stunning, it's airy, it feels different. I've never been in one where the floor is showcasing the materials in the way that you've done it. And really every office, so when people are going through, we'd be working and people would come through with designers, the sales reps, and they're standing right at the desk to look at, tile that's on the wall behind the desk or the floor that's right below the desk. So that's really unique. But I'm curious how you approach designing the space, and what decisions were really important to you.
Um, it's I think it's an advantage that I have had to pick materials for a home before, and it can be very overwhelming. And when you walk in a space and you're like, I like that. Oh, wait, no, I like that. Oh, no, wait, I like that. And, you're kind of like, it's just this overwhelming experience of you can't pick anything. So the intention was to have enough material to get an idea of what the client, whether it be a homeowner or a designer or an architect or a landscape architect, like what direction they wanted to go. And then from there, you can kind of start building the process. So I usually say pick out a color and then, or something that, what are you drawn to, and, we start on the floor and then you start building up from there. So, and you get information. And if I put everything on the walls, first of all, I don't know if I'd ever find anything, but um, it would just be completely overwhelming for anyone. So it's very intentional in the fact that we have a lot of stuff hidden, and that is we're consultative salespeople. So we ask questions, we listen. Um, we put obviously things that we really love or are trying or are more challenging to see without just one piece.
Mm,
So like Zalige, for instance, you really have to see the undulation and the handmade tile and talk someone through it because maybe somebody doesn't want it to have undulation. They want like a perfect square, a perfect rectangle. So having those items available, and then the way that we have it on the walls is it's on clips that we can take off, and then we have these great tables in our showroom, and we just kind of lay it out from beginning to end, and then as you go through the process and you go through a house, you can look at it and it's like, oh my gosh, that's it. It's the same way a designer puts out fabrics and um, carpets and wood and all those different materials and mediums so that a client can see the end result. And sometimes you're like, okay, I really loved that tile, but it doesn't work. It's like all of a sudden you're like what just happened there? So it's a very intentional process that we've done. And thank you. I love our showroom. And then we've added a space upstairs that is, for some clients, homeowners, they really need that quiet space. And then we bring up material to show them, as opposed to them being in the candy store, being
Yeah.
told that they can only have a brown M&M, which is, or a green M&M. Like, wait a minute, what about all this other stuff? So,
Yeah. That's great. Thinking about that in terms of, well, I think you kind of answered that, but yeah, I was going to ask you, what do you think about like the environment of a showroom and the way that there's like a playful presentation really helps people to fall in love with the right materials? And I think that was one of the questions I wanted to ask, and I think you answered that in terms of really being able to reduce the overwhelm and the decision fatigue that a homeowner or even a designer is going through as they have multiple clients. And the homeowner's not only picking tile, they're picking all sorts of things, well, depending on the project, but and it can be very overwhelming. So yeah, I think that you kind of brought that together where you're able to make it very intentional. Not everything's there and available to them all at one time, and you can really consult them through and then reveal the things that may or may not work for them. Um,
right.
yeah, I love that. Um, what would if we kind of go back a little bit in time to the last few years, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about running a business in general?
Oh,
Big
a
question, right?
few, even
Where
a
do you
few.
start? Yeah.
Uh, I think, I mean, there's the less concrete things like trust your gut, be bold. Um, but then the things like hire people before you actually need them because you have to train them. Try to have a little bit of foresight. Um, and even though we predicted our sales growth outside of this year, what it actually took or takes to pull that off and not feel like you're going crazy
Mm,
because you can't work hard enough. You can't. Um, so I mean, the things that I've learned are get really good people.
mm.
Listen to your gut. When you know somebody is not a good fit, letting them go sooner than later. Having a body sometimes it's just a body. They're literally not doing any good um, for the growth or anything. I mean, uh, I've been very fortunate that the first probably 6 people I hired, they came to me and, people sent them to me because I mean, I think my clients are so great that they're like, oh my God, she needs help. Um, and I listened to that, and there's certain positions that were very hard to find. Um,
Mm. Yeah, definitely.
but identifying where you need help and where your weakness, I guess, or something that somebody can do it better. Knowing those things and really having that introspective idea, that mindful thought of, I am not the best forklift driver, or I'm I am not the best person to coping or finance. Little things like that. I'm really good at numbers and sales goals, but there's other areas that I just need help with. And details, like I love big picture, and sometimes the details can eat me up. So those are
Yeah.
the things that, having someone, Katie for me,
Yeah.
is,
Got it,
I
Katie.
mean, she's just God sent, I mean,
Everybody needs a Katie. Yeah.
yes, everybody needs a Katie. Not giving her last name, I'm afraid she'll start getting phone calls.
Totally, totally. Absolutely. Um, Curious about, well, this is going to be a tricky one, but I've heard you say this multiple times, and then you said it at the beginning, and I just, the whisper, the tap on the shoulder, just like gut. I like the way that you put it because it's very unique to you. I've never heard anybody say that. You hear people say, trust your instincts, go with your gut. But for you, it's a whisper in the ear and a tap on the shoulder. Um, and before starting your own business, was that something you were keenly aware of just in your life in general? Or is this something that's really developed as you've become an entrepreneur?
I think I became being a parent, it became more apparent there. Like literally, I'd be in the kitchen, and when you have that as a parent, you're like, it's silence, and you're like, something's going on, that you need to know about. And it really did start with moments like that. And I could go through and tell you specific instances, but you start to like, okay, I need to listen to that because it's easy to brush it off and think, it's okay, they're fine. I left them in the playpen, with a book, but instead they've gotten out of the playpen and now are walking, up the stairs, or whatever. So I mean,
Right.
it's little things like that. And
Hmm.
um I do think that is a strength that I have developed, and I really do. I pay attention. I don't feel like anybody is brought into my life without a purpose.
Hmm.
So it might be for that moment, it might be for, a certain period of time, but I feel like everybody is if you're aware of it, that and it really is something you have to be aware of and willing to act. Because I think a lot of people have those feelings or those instincts, but they aren't willing to act because of fear.
Hmm.
And I think I take calculated risks, but I also listen to people. I try to listen more than I talk, and I really do listen to people, even though they may not be aware or believe that I am. And it just takes me a little while to kind of get it rolling, you know, of something.
Right.
So it's just a development, but that instinct, that whisper, that tap on the shoulder is definitely something that's been developed,
And
and
would
it's
you,
partnerships.
as a driven, entrepreneur with ambitious goals, um, would you say that, like, how would you describe, or maybe I'm just freestyling here. So, but these are the things that are, kind of coming to me as we're having this conversation is as a driven entrepreneur, part of you is pushing the business forward. And then there's instances where you get the whisper in the ear or the tap on the shoulder. And you shared some news with me that maybe that fit into the category of the whisper or the tap on the shoulder of the new things that you're doing. Would you say that that's something that's pulling you forward? So there's both a balance between you're pushing your vision forward to a degree, and then there's that, being in tune and aware with, and I'm not sure what we would relate that to, whether it's something bigger than ourselves or outside of ourselves that's really pulling
Yeah,
us forward. What would you kind of share with on that theme, if you're would even agree to that idea?
I 100% agree with it. I mean, I feel like there's actions that we take, and then there's you have an idea and you start moving, like the tap on the shoulder. It's something that you take an action on. And eventually it's almost like you don't have control of it. It's like, so I said it's like it's pulling me rather than, so it's like this balance of push and pull. But Jay kept on asking me, like, when are you going to stop? When are you going to say enough's enough? And I'm like, who am I supposed to tell no? It's like all these people, it's like floodgates open. It's like people keep coming in and buying and wanting to, they see our vision, what we've curated, and what they're getting it, and I want to share it. It's like, I mean, I remember early on, waking up in the middle of the night going, oh my God, how busy do I want to be? And that's before you add people. And then once you start adding people, it's like, okay, wait a minute, this is doable. And then of course January, when my life changed, like where I could actually put action um, into place. It's just, but that pull of, for me, the pull was um, the clients of just what they wanted, and I was able to find it, or or my vendors. Honestly, I have suppliers that, and I told a story of like mid 20, and like you need to order as many containers as you can, and being a self-funded company and just pouring money back into it as we could, just ordering a lot of containers, and then like panicking over what have I just done when you put a pencil to it, and just
Right. Right. Right.
not knowing what the future. And that to me is being pulled. It's like, but
Mm,
you have to take the action and be aware of what's happening.
mm.
It's not, there's a lot of people that might feel that, but that, there's a voice of reason, I guess, that I don't listen to. I don't know, I do. Um, but it's with limits. I mean, you can't just go, I couldn't buy 100 containers, but I could buy 20, and we'll figure it out. Again, we'll figure it out. And,
Yeah,
and then
that's
how was I going to house that? And how was I going to pull that? It all comes. And I'm big on that. We'll figure it out, and it does, it works out every time. But, you know, ordering 18, 20 containers, my husband's asking, where are you going to store it? I'm like, I don't know. I got 3 months. We'll figure it out.
right.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's the push and pull, but being aware and taking action.
I was going to ask you, what would you tell somebody that's thinking of opening a tile, or stone showroom today? But I think we've answered that. It's that, you follow your intuition, take calculated risks. And if act in despite of fear,
Yeah.
and you don't have to figure everything out all at once. And it sounds like for you, it's like, trusting that you'll figure it out, trusting yourself that you have the resources, the network, the support to figure it out. And you just got to figure it out one step at a time, right? Versus all at once. It's almost impossible to figure out all the steps all at once. I think if you even go down that rabbit hole, it can be discouraging because you'll, identify too many reasons why this could fail.
Right.
You try and, have all the solutions before you get going. Um, what would be, I'm going to kind of jump past a few of these here into, what would be some of the moments, that really pop out for you as the most joyful, moments? Because I know there's no shortage of challenges, in this business, and you're experiencing, and we can dig into that explosive growth, which is a blessing. It is,
Yeah.
but it comes with its own unique challenges. What would be some of the moments that bring you the most joy?
Well, for sure, my daughter's working with me. I mean, because
Yeah.
it's something that, uh, in the beginning, they're like, "I will never work for you. You work too hard." To being something that, seeing the creativity, um, opening Austin, um, being on the cover of a magazine. Not me, but a project that, or being, you know, it's just such a great feeling, of some being part of. You dream about a home. People dream about a home and how they're going to decorate it, and it might take 2 years, it might take 30 years, but being a part of that, that's what brings me joy. Is to when people come back and they're like, such a great experience, or I love this, or I love that. Because to me, stone is something, and tile is something that isn't going to be changed often. So it's truly like the canvas of the space. So everything else is created off that. Um, it's a very personal thing. And when you walk into a room, I want somebody to say, God, I'm glad I chose that. Or driving into their house and like looking at the front, it might be the front entry. It's like, I literally feel that, in my own home. I'm like, I love this space. So
Yeah.
that's the goal. That's the joy part to me, is helping to create that space.
Mhm. Um, do you remember? Oh, I'm sure you do. Silly question, but from will never work for you to then obviously now both your daughters do. What was the pivotal moment? And was that did that come fully from them in terms of making the change and going, yeah, we want to join, you know, the family business, or became the family business once they entered it?
Yes.
Mm. Or did it take a little arm twisting?
It really wasn't. I did not ever want to make them feel like they had to do it. But I once I went to college and started meeting um, more people from all different walks of life, and the world opens up to you. And I think it was they're a year apart, so it was their sophomore and freshman year, and it was just after kind of getting on the end of COVID. And we went to I needed to go to Morocco to the factories, and they went to try and make it fun. Went to New York, Morocco, back to New York, and then home, making sure that we did things that I know my children wanted to do. So,
Yeah, right.
it was definitely something that was the beginning of this evolution. Even though they went to the same college, they had their own experiences. So Caitlin graduated with a business degree, marketing and management. Kate Mackenzie's graduated with a triple minor in interior design, architecture, and business strategy. So as they got to like their junior year, or Caitlin's junior year, she's like, you know what, I do think that this is something that I would really enjoy. And by that point, it was let's see, 22, I guess, or 21, where the growth was starting to show. Like I had a few people working for me. I wasn't driving the forklift. And I told them, I kept telling them, I'm like, it's not always going to be like this. It's not going to be me on the floor with a set of plans and a ruler. If like we're gonna be big. I'm like, we're gonna have somebody. I'm gonna need somebody to do marketing, and we're gonna have more than one office. And at that time, it was like, okay, sure. Like Caitlin always says, my little pet project of starting Farmhouse Stone when she was in high school, and then now look what we've done. That it's definitely that. I feel like that trip to Morocco, and kind of, this is, and them seeing me change. I mean, I remember them coming to me and they're like, "You're so much happier now." And when your teenage girls or kids tell you like you seem happier now, that to me says something. You know.
Right. Right. Yeah, they were probably apprehensive. I mean, what you shared was like they wouldn't why would they join? They don't work that hard, like seeing you grind in the early days, right? Probably
Yeah.
work, you know, more hours than not. And then being like, why would I want to sign up for that? To then seeing more of the ease, um, the ability to travel, the world opening up, all the possibilities, and how what they were pursuing in school lines up with what you're doing. That's cool. Um, so let's rewind a little bit to earlier this year. So we're December now, 2025. We met January 2025, I think, end of January, at Tice. When we first met, if we rewind there, and I know that there's, of course, there's different, stages along the journey that have their own level of hard. But when we met, it felt like you had reached a tipping point. Maybe that was at least the, along your current journey, the peak of challenge for you. Um, can you recall like what really connected with you that prompted you to? Because I think I was just about to like head out. I was talking to one other guy, if I remember correctly, and then I was like gonna run and get something to eat, and I met you and Jay. Um, and I didn't never actually asked you that. Were you guys just walking along? Were you intending to like kind of like try and catch me before I left so that we could talk?
So you did, your 30-minute presentation, and I can't remember if it was supposed to be or somebody. Actually, I think we were there and I just read it wrong, but it wasn't what I was intending to see.
No way, I didn't know
But
that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yes. And then so Jay and I were in the very back, and
Okay,
you started talking about the different stages of the business. And um, Jay's definitely been part of the business, but he hasn't been in it like I have. He's watched me struggle. and been with me and helped as he could, but it's a lot. So while you were probably within the first 5 minutes, I went up to the front row of your presentation. He stayed in the back because I wanted to get um, individual experience from what you were saying, because what he says matters to me. What he thinks matters to me. So you finished your presentation, and I went back to him. I was as straight faced as I could be, not enthusiastically asking him, like, "What do you think?" He's like, "Oh my God, your face should have been on that presentation." He's like, he's like, literally everything you're going through and have gone through, he's talking about. And it was like I was at a moment of like drowning. I knew things had to be done, but I didn't even know where to start. So I wasn't going to let you get away. I mean, there was definitely people like coming up to you, and I was like, I need to speak to you.
Yeah, yeah. Because I didn't know if that just happened. And the reason that I asked that is I had seen some footage that we'll not use. Somebody was kind enough to try and capture some stuff. And it shows everything. And I've looked at it a couple times and I'm like, I do not see Jennifer or Jay anywhere in there. Right. I can recognize our other clients that have come from that presentation, and I've never seen you there. And then there's some other pictures as
That's at
well.
the
And I'm like,
front right.
"Sure." So that's when I was just asking, like, you guys were kind of walking. I was walking out, you were right there. And I was just actually curious about how that happened, because I was like, how much of that did you even catch? And I never asked you that, because I couldn't
All of
find you.
it.
Like, the Where is
All of
Waldo,
it.
part
Yeah.
of looking at that.
I was the female in the male dominated industry.
Remember
No,
the
I'm kidding.
guys with cowboy hats? There was a mom that brought her kid there. And I remember the other
Yep. I
face.
think they were in front of me.
So you felt at that time you were drowning. Would you say that you were at the most challenging stage in your journey thus far?
Without a doubt. Yes.
Uh, okay. And I think you have some ambitious goals, and I don't know if there'll be a new level of hard that exceeds that one. Hopefully not. But, you know, you look back in
Well,
hindsight,
you helped me find those ambitious goals, Justin.
you said it was my fault yesterday.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, what would you say? So, the reality of your business in 2024, and if you want to share numbers, you can, to kind of give people, and you don't have to, kind of, the ability to know kind of what your scale was at the end of 2024, where you've ended up now at the end of 2025, and just kind of what that amount of volume adds, that a lot of complexity and pressure. What was the reality of your world at that time?
So I think one element of complexity too, our general manager was out on maternity leave. So that was, we
Right.
were down a man or a
Right.
woman. We had had a successful year of, again, going from, I don't know, like 5 million to almost 8 last year. And then we had goals. Um, so as we were getting into the year, it just, I really felt like I was conservative because, people are like, well, the economy, is a little uncertain. And we were starting to hit some big numbers. So, our goal was 10 million this year. So, and we're ending up at closer to 12. But what that did when we went from almost 8 to almost 12 is the sheer volume of something when you're talking about material that is a few dollars a foot. The number of pieces that were going in and out of the warehouse that were being ordered, the amount of clients that were coming in, um, and trying to keep it balanced, like where it wasn't all falling on one person's shoulders. It just was incredibly, incredibly challenging, and not kind of knowing that we needed help, but I didn't even know where to start. And even from the conversation, because it's just been a magical year, honestly, just because of the evolution of knowing what I know now, and honestly doubting you in the beginning. I'm like, you know what? Having faith in what you were telling us and convincing, not hard, but convincing the team, like, I need you to have faith in in this process, and
Mhm.
just because you don't reveal it all at once, you take it's it's spoon fed to where it's something that is digestible and you can actually act on it. And you were so patient because there was things that you would tell me to do and I wouldn't do it because I was in the middle of it. I'm in the throes and time
Mhm.
blocking and things like that. I'm like, there's no way that's going to work. That's why when my team says time blocking isn't going to work, I'm like, you have to make it work. You have to figure out how that works for you. Um, but
Yeah.
to where we are, like to August, when we were on that meeting and we knew Katie was getting ready to go out for a couple of weeks, and I'm like,
Yeah.
we are busted. I'm like, we are so stressed. Everybody was so stressed. And I knew we were, but I was like, I didn't even know how to pull the nose up because you can't stop the business from coming in, which you don't want to. I mean, God forbid. I mean, that's what we want is the people to come in. But it was everybody was super stressed. Um, just we were hiring in the warehouse and we knew that was a necessary piece, but it's just not as easy as you think. It's like they don't come in knowing every
Yeah.
piece of the puzzle, and just like salespeople. And then I remember like the first, you're like, what are the first three people you'd hire? And then even then, I was like, well, we do this, this, and this. And you're like, oh, we need this role too. Oh, wait, you need this role too. It's like, and we're still in the process of hiring. I think
Yeah.
we're at like what 6 to 8 people now in the last 4 months, and how we were going to do that. It's like, I didn't even know. It's like I said, so many people had come to me or we had scouted, like one of our best salespeople was, saw at a wedding of a friend, and Jay is like, hey, you need to come work with us.
That's
And then of
great.
course my kids added too. And it's just, it was a lot going on, and I couldn't do anything to fix it. Like it's not like, oh, I'll jump in here and I'll fix this for you. It's like I didn't even. I was just like the water levels coming up, and you're like, oh my god, what do I do? Um, but having that process, because if I couldn't lead the team, how did they know what to do?
Right.
So, and they're I had such an amazing team, and they were absolutely, imagine you like full on the back of a truck. You're like, okay, man, I'll go. Just like total chaos of wind blowing through their hair. Like, no problem. One arm going off, but I
Yeah.
try to still not impact their life in a negative way. We have
Yeah.
Hillary's son plays baseball. I'm like, no, go to the baseball games. He's a senior. You're never going to get this back. But then
Yeah.
you take another person out, and you're like, what that does to the rest of the team. And when
Yeah.
I travel, and it 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 impacts everybody. So I want it to be a joyous place to work
Yes.
and fun. I want the experience to be joyful, but it's really hard when everybody is literally being pushed to their limit.
Yeah. Pushed to the limit, pulled in all different directions. And we'll talk about that in a minute because we're in the midst of getting systems installed, that become the new normal. Um, but let's talk about that. I never actually did like a full recap with you. I've just heard you say on even the company wide call that we had that this helped to change your life. I didn't, because we were so in the thick of systems, even really follow up with you as much. I kind of left that in Katie's hands. Hey, can you get that to her and maybe queue it up for her on the plane or some other time that she'll be able to tackle this and really try and focus on rolling out the systems. But the idea of reclaiming ownership of the business, starting with reclaiming your time and your energy. You shared on the group call with your whole team that this has really changed your life. I'd really love for you to share. Just, I mean, more often than not, most of our clients or those that we talk to that we don't end up working with are in a very similar place as you. There
Mhm.
might be different factors that are contributing to the level of stress and the drowning and the overwhelm, but it is the most common kind of thread that runs through. What would you
Yeah.
share in terms of your experience, the tools that you took away and in your own unique way that really worked for you that could help somebody else?
I think there's a few things. One, the communication protocol is huge. Like, not because it was just me in the beginning, and I've literally had every single role in this business that it was easier to come to me and ask. And when I
Right.
showed up in the office, it was like when you're out of town and your kids come running at you and they're like, "Oh, can I get this? Can I get that? Oh, can you tell me what's the price on this? When is this coming in? What do you think about this?" And my client wants that, and you're just like, "Oh my gosh," like step back, and having basically my employees that they're not allowed to talk to me, including my daughters. And, and it's while we do laugh about it, which they do talk to me still. And I talk to them, but I've gotten better at, like, you need to ask Katie about that. You need to ask Brooke. You need to go to Jesus about that. Or go to Roberto. I'm not going to answer it for you just because I'm here and it's easy for you. It makes it hard for me because in part of this process, listening to things, while I may have listened to the same podcast from somebody a year ago, when I hear something like, each time you get distracted, it's 28 minutes to get back on track. You
Mm,
think about that. If it happens 10 times during the day, what do you accomplish? Nothing. That's 5 hours trying to get back on track. And in our business and having a showroom, it's you have to have empathy for the showroom salespeople too, because they're having emails, they get texts, they get phone calls, they have people walk in, they have other employees reaching out to them, and it's you're kind of constantly like a pinball machine, like where am I supposed to go first? And
mm,
having a purposeful attack makes a difference. So that, and then having the time to, and I moved this year, which was a huge piece, and that was literally 2.5 hours a day that I was driving back
right.
and forth to work. It was just that was, I think, kind of the straw that broke the camel's back. Like, I could not, I knew it was coming to an end, but 2.5 hours, I'm like, what do I need to do? I mean, like, you can use that time in your car, but there's only so much you can do. And what I was finding was I was getting home and working. But what that did was put pressure on my home life because the
Right.
people that mean the most to me were
Mm,
getting the short end of the stick. So through the time blocking, I mean, like, you even tell me, like, it's not just the 8 to 5 that you're blocking. Like, date
right.
with your husband or your spouse, time with your friends. Like, literally putting that into your calendar and making sure that all of life is important, not only that work life balance, is it's hard to attain. And that is where um, it's really been life changing for me. Like,
That's
I don't get the phone calls all day long. And
right. I actually never followed up with you because you had mentioned the positive benefits of the time blocking. It sounded like you implemented it, and usually we follow up pretty relentlessly to be like, was that fully installed? So this is the first time we've been working together for a long time that we're closing the loop, and now that you're sharing those things, I'm like, okay, yep, yep, you hit the things of building the. We're not going to be able to always do all of that, but you build the business around the life you want, and that's what should get put on the calendar first. And
yeah,
usually when people do that, it's very stressful because then you're like, well, where does the work happen?
yeah,
That does force you to kind of compress the time in which you're going to be more intentional, more focused, with your time and your energy of how you show up in the business. I like that a lot. That sounds like you really embrace that, and it's had the right impact. Um, Now I know that we're still, midway through looking to fully install the systems, and a big part of that is getting the team to embrace change. Um, but what's really stood out about the process in the business engine method that we've been going through, and I know you're trusting the process, but what about it really, makes sense? Like in terms of you can see this really working when all the pieces are connected together.
that growth aspect, that adding the bodies, because when you add someone to your business, who's going to train them? How are they going to get onboarded? How are they going to know what to do And who's going to do that? If in the beginning it was me, I would train somebody, and then little by little you try and sprinkle somebody else in there. Um, but well, like I said, we've hired like 8 people. How do you train 8 people at the same time and still get your day-to-day job and activities done that cannot, they can't be just swept to the side and I'll get back to it in a few months. I mean, you still have to do those things. So it seems so simple. I mean, it's not earth-shattering, but
Yeah.
it's just a step-by-step process of
Right.
this is how, this is how you're going to greet your clients. This is what we're going to ask. These are the questions we're going to ask. We're going to, qualify. Are they a good fit for us? So, and we are in the middle of it, and um, we have our test subjects right now, our new hires of like, it's been so insightful because we're open. I'm like, hey, even though we're doing this, I know that there's going to be things that we forget or things that we can do better. And I want you to come to me and I want you to let us know like this is working, this isn't working. And I feel like having that approachable uh, thought of like, we can change this or tweak it. I think tweak it's a better way or add to it because it's not an easy industry to jump into. I mean, there's so many pieces and colors and sold by the piece or the box or the square foot or this takes 3 months, that takes 30 minutes. It's like it's
Yeah.
just like so many pieces and who do you go to and what's the direction, when you have that question. But having that kind of a roadmap
Mm.
for employees to follow and new hires to follow. The goal is an incredible customer experience at the end of the day,
Mm.
and letting everyone know what their part is in that customer experience from the minute they call or walk into a Farmhouse Stone to it being delivered to their doorstep. Everybody has a very significant role in that. And
Yeah.
we can sell all day long, but if we mess up on the delivery,
Mm.
that's what they're going to remember.
Yeah.
So it's and I don't think warehouse workers are spoken to the way that we speak to them. The fact that you are probably the most integral part of this business because it's super heavy. You have to be aware of what you're doing. You need to make sure that it looks like it's supposed to look. And when you hire a bunch of new people, that's not as easy. I mean, we have a 23,000 square foot warehouse going to a 40,000 square foot warehouse. That shows how much material is in there, and we expect them to know and have expectations with. And I think a lot of jobs like you take this widget, put it over here, and send it out. It's like, no, I expect you to know what that is, do it mindfully, take pictures, you know, and it's so appreciated. And I can't tell them thank you enough. But it's literally from the beginning to the end. Every single piece of our machine is so important. And when one piece isn't performing at the standard, then it's going to fall apart. And that's where you help us. You help us identify areas that are faults, that have fault or need improvement. Um, because it's one thing to, as my mother would say, throw the baby out with the bathwater. You're like, well, this is wrong. So we'll just start all over again. It's like, no, no, no. Let's just tweak it. Like,
Right.
what part was the failure? And how do we improve it? So it's an ongoing process. It is a tedious process. It is
Yeah. Depending on
and
your,
that growth.
it can be fairly fast implemented. Maybe I should give just, 'cause I think we're on our 24th episode. This will be, since launching, the podcast. And I don't think we've actually unpacked the business engine method yet. We've unpacked the 90-day, the growth engine. So people are hearing some of the things, and I know that we've gone over time, Jennifer. Hopefully you're still okay. We'll try and land the plane here shortly. Thank you so much. Um, but I think we're talking and we're just scratching the surface, and people are hearing, okay, time blocking, clarity,
Yeah.
being able to hire new people quickly. I'll try because I think otherwise we're going to leave some stuff on the table, and people really won't leave with that clarity of listening this. So Jennifer, meeting at Tice, engaged with us at Driven for Growth to install what we call the business engine method. And so when we're talking about communication protocols or new hire onboarding, those are great things. But where we started and kind of the roadmap for that is to map your core engine, we call it. So, how you're delivering on your promise to your customers. And so what Jennifer's talking about, like from the minute you pick up the phone all the way to it lands on their doorstep, there are all these different touch points. And the more the business grows, often the more touch points there are, and the more opportunities for things to fall through the cracks or things to get missed. So the first thing we did was the core engine mapping. So they got a massive whiteboard and mapping things on the whiteboard and then moving it to digital. And the reason that we do that is to gain clarity first of what are all those touch points. And then figuring out, well, who owns that touch point? And then what's the playbook? I'm using language I don't normally use, but each of those pieces of the engine or parts of the engine, then Jennifer and her team designed playbooks for. And a playbook is how you get the predictable result. So who owns it? And then what are the steps to follow so that you'll get that predictable result if you follow the process? And that's still something that we're like just on the other side now of ensuring that the team will adopt, executing from checklists as opposed to from memory. Because when there's so many different things happening, and you operate off of memory, that's how we have things fall through the cracks. And so I won't go too far down the rabbit hole. There's many, many different little that are part of that. But I did want to just bridge to like, well, how do you go to hire then 8 people in a very short time frame and then onboard them simultaneously? Still wasn't easy. Still, onboarding them. But where you had a lot of momentum and it didn't put as much of a strain as it could have on everybody needing to stop what they're doing to then onboard somebody new, is they had the playbooks to then reference. So in their role, they would come in and go, okay, I would eventually own these 4 playbooks. And I can go through and learn a lot faster than if somebody just had to sit there with me and hold my hand for the next 2 months. So that's just to kind of give a little more context to what we were talking about there. Um, but I'll work towards landing the plane there for us. What would you say is becoming possible that didn't feel possible before as a result of the work that we're doing?
I cannot be here and the machine still runs. I mean, like I can do the things that I need to do to run the business, to identify new products. That's the biggest thing that I don't in I, it doesn't seem like 7.5 years, it's not that much time, but 6.5 years of not being able to really do anything without having your phone with you or your computer at all times. It's like it's a lot, and it is a blessing, but you know, you can't do it alone. I think
Yeah.
that's the most important thing. And you have to identify the things that you want to do, and that's the biggest change is that I
Mm,
get to do the things. I don't get to do all the things I want to do. I really love to sell, and I don't get to do that.
yeah.
But in all honesty, I'm not the best at it on the team, and you have to. Unfortunately, it hurts, but but it's
Yeah.
fun. I still get to be part of the process.
So
So that's
that's
been the biggest deal is
right.
I feel like I can breathe. It's like it's really not this heavy weight on my chest. So being able to like, okay, we're gonna get there.
And was that helpful that in terms of, and I remember we sat in your office and we did it not the way I would normally do it literally on a yellow post-it note, very little for us to put down, okay, we're going to reclaim ownership of your role. And we're only going to have 3 things on there as to what is in your wheelhouse now, and everything else is not. And again, we've been working on so many other things that not that I didn't, not follow up as much as um, I could have maybe on that. Uh, hearing you share that, has that been directly what's allowed you to kind of kind of shift your mindset in terms of having to have your hand in everything to then going to, well, I can let go of a lot of these things?
Yes, definitely. As a business owner, I think it's very honestly, one of the most terrifying things is letting go. I mean, there's a lot of things that will scare
Yeah.
you, like that keep you up at night.
Yeah.
And one of those things is letting go and trusting that someone else is going to do it to the standard that you expect. And
Yeah.
that is, I think that's been probably, and I don't feel like I was one of those people that's like, I'm the only person that can do this. Nobody else can do it right, or they're going to steal it and, start their own business. I don't, it's a lot to do. Trust me. I mean, I just make it look easy. But it's, it is, it's really hard. And then also when you find someone that is really good, even if, maybe they're not, like you say, right butt in the right seat. You know, maybe we just need to shift things a little bit. It's like you're a great employee, you have all these qualities, but maybe I need you over here than over here. Um, and that, sometimes it's hard. Those are hard conversations. People don't like change. And that's probably another one of the biggest parts. Is like, I know that you're doing all this correctly and you're part of the process of how we're setting up the playbooks, but checklists are going to help you, like that one thing that you forgot. And like the analogy is a pilot. Pilot uses a checklist every time. And I remember the warehouse, they said something like, well, we get things about 98% right. And I told them, God, we're not flying planes. Because, and they started laughing. And it's like, well, it's kind of true. Is 98% though? It's like, is it okay? Or is 80% or 90%? It's like you want to shoot for 100%. And it's not, you're not going to hit it, but let's shoot for it anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Um, I love that. Jennifer, you ready for the hot seat portion of our session?
Bring it on.
Bring it on. Awesome. What is your favorite tile or material that you're obsessed with right now?
Oh, like picking a favorite kid. Um, Honestly, it's the modularity of stone, like all the pieces. So, I've got pieces that you can put together to create patterns, and there's probably 8 different colors. And that is my favorite thing right now is that all the pieces that you can combine to create a custom look without it being
Yeah,
like hugely expensive. That's my favorite.
love that. And maybe this answers the next question as well. But what's a trend that you see that will define 2026?
Um, Freedom to pick those things. I really do feel like that modularity, starting to see it in porcelains, and it's that little subtle change of like a glossy with a matte or patterns in creating truly your own space without having it cost just a prohibitive amount. Because in the past, to have something custom and unique came with a price tag. So now, by bringing it in from the factory and having it ready to go, there's a lot of freedom to that, and really the freedom in the designer's hands or the homeowner's hands, whoever's doing the designing. That's what I see as, like I like beige, but I just want a little bit of gray because it is going to come back to gray. Like I talked about, like the canvas of the space. You want it to last forever. I want it to be timeless and to be that space that you walk in and you're like, I love this space.
Yeah, which you have now right behind you.
Yes, it is.
What's
I
the
love my space.
material? Maybe this will be a tricky question. You can pass on this one if it stumps you. What's a material or a maker that you think is underrated?
My daughter will kill me for this, but porcelain. It is. I think because there's a level of porcelain and how it's come. And I know I'm Farmhouse Stone, but you can find some really pretty products that were not available in the past. So I think that you can get a great look, and I think that it's more of an entry level material. So it's more, but it doesn't have to be plain. it can still have a lot of personality. That's what I think is underrated.
I wasn't expecting that one. All right, cool. What's a you can answer this one in two different ways. What's a trip that you took to source material that changed your perspective, or just one that was like your hands down favorite?
That's a hard one. I think Morocco. I mean, it's not only stone, it's tile, it's the zalige, it's the colors, it's how it's finished. Like it's
And
truly the art.
yeah, yeah.
Huh?
And it's the place itself.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I mean, it's just near and dear to my heart. It was what I have on my floors. It's where I started. It was the first stone that 12 years ago, 13 years ago, I was like, oh my God. Like I knew it was something special. And that it, it literally changed my life. I mean, it gave me, I went from 2012 to now is night and day. So I love it. I love the way that it's finished, and I love where it's evolving and
Yeah.
and what we are creating together. Because they're like, "What do you think about this?" I'm like, "Oh, what do you think about this?"
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a lot of fun in creating.
What's you can answer this in a number of different ways, but either a book, a creator, a designer that's really inspiring you at the moment.
Oh golly, I'm just running so hard.
Yeah.
You know what? A book that I love is Ina Garten's "Be Ready When the Luck Happens."
Can you
I've
say
listened to Ina Garten, "Be Ready When the Luck Happens,"
okay, oh, nice.
and it
Right on.
is incredibly inspirational to me. I've listened to it 3 times. I think it came out last summer, and, I just I it resonates with me. It's to start a business later in life, and to just kinda jump and go, and
Mm,
it just means a lot. I could listen to it over and over again, and I'll always get something from it.
I'm gonna s
Mostly be grateful, the
yeah,
gratitude.
and we'll also drop it in the description or the show notes so people can find that. Um,
Okay.
2 last questions for you. What's a personal habit or ritual that helps you to stay grounded as you are running so hard right now, with the explosive growth that Farmhouse is experiencing?
Helps me is the way I start my day, is I start my day walking the dog. It's funny, it's like actually the dog dictates more than I do, but um, when I have to interrupt that routine, I find that it's really hard for me to get back on track. So it's just kind of the whole process in the morning, whereas I used to grab my phone and start scrolling immediately. It gives me a little time to just kind of like ease into my day. It's sweet. One of my neighbors is like, "You are the most mellow person." And I was like, "Oh my God, if you knew what's going on in my head right now." It's just like, it's insanity. But it's a good way for me to start my day.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a good one. It's like anytime I do that, and I've fallen a little bit back into that where I start the day on the phone, it's just never as good of a day as it could have been if I started it on my own terms, you know,
Yes.
versus everybody else's terms, whether that's social media and bad news, or you don't really get, emails that are urgent and things like that. But when I did, it can totally derail your day, right? You've got to answer 3
Yeah.
designers, you get a text message blowing up here, and then you're just, as you say, you're
Yes, the flowy thing and then
yeah, yeah, at the car dealership. Yeah. Uh,
yes.
well, it's been awesome spending this time with you, Jennifer. If another owner is listening to this, same overwhelm, same sort of bottleneck that you were experiencing at the beginning of the year, what could you share with them about your experience of working with us at Driven for Growth?
Um, it's been amazing, and I think that I've told you this too. It's like even though there's people that probably have talked to you at some point, and they may have thought, "Oh, that's not for me," or "I'm not ready for that." Um, hopefully, you will be. Hopefully, you will continue to grow, and having a good footing is so important. Having being grounded. So working with you guys has just been, I say it all the time, and, if people it's been life-changing. Like, I truly enjoy what I'm doing. Um, I've loved it all along, but it was, like, hyperventilating, like, "Oh my god, where do I go from here?" Like, this, like, stone on my chest, like, I can't get it off. So being able to get peace back, and then I think that it's great that you have different places. It's like you don't have to be in my position. You could be at an earlier stage, because that was the thing that resonated with me from day one when you gave your presentation, is the three stages that you talked about in that. And I was like, I know that stage, I know that stage. And I'm like, well, I must be in that stage because I've already done those two, and it's just been a great, and honestly, I have ideas of the future, but even having more of a direction. And that's something that I didn't have, the 3 to 5 year direction. I was just trying to get through the next 12 months. And that has been just, I love it. I love
Nice.
having those. It's like, I know where I want to go, but how do I get there? I need the map. And that's what you've given
Right.
us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. I really appreciate you spending the time.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Justin. Thank you.